Hello and welcome once again. You're watching In Depth, the show that separates the news from the noise. Today our focus on In Depth is the big question, the race for a coronavirus vaccine and the search for a drug that might act as a preventive. As coronavirus continues its deadly march, the global caseload has already crossed 6.3 million. The death count is fast approaching the 400,000 mark. The world is desperate to produce an effective vaccine. Today, we focus on the race for a vaccine.
A vaccine that can counter COVID-19. Companies and research organizations are racing against time and each other. But how long before a vaccine is actually available?
Be a year to 18 months from that period, which then puts it sometime in the middle of next year, at least that will be then when, in principle, the science is quote unquote done to a level that could mean that it could be rolled out at some level.
Over 100 experimental COVID-19 vaccines are in various stages of development across the world. From US-based Moderna Incorporated to China's Cansino Pharmaceuticals Incorporated. With some of the world's biggest companies in the race, the competition is intense and the field crowded. But there is also global cooperation like never before.
If you look at the pandemics that have happened in our history, we never had the technology and the will to come together in these kind of global coalitions between innovators, manufacturers, donors, funders, like we've seen in the COVID-19 crisis.
But because developing a vaccine is usually a long-drawn process, pharma companies are trying to compress years-long processes into a few months. There are concerns if this rush will sacrifice safety, apprehensions around long-term abilities, and also questions around the dosage, availability, and efficacy.
Now, Union Health Minister Harsh Vardhan recently announced that 4 of the 14 COVID-19 vaccine candidates from India may enter the clinical trial stage in the next 3 to 5 months. Now, we have all heard about different vaccines reaching different stages, but what does it really mean and how far are we in the real sense from a coronavirus vaccine? Let's take a look.
After almost 4 months of global deaths and economic shutdowns brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, institutions and people are anxiously waiting for a return to normal routines. And a vaccine against the SARS-CoV-2 virus is one of the solutions that can help populations bounce back, or so many believe. Leading to a global frenzy to fund, invent and conduct trials on vaccines. According to the World Health Organization, over 100 vaccines are in various phases of development around the world, and the global effort is being coordinated by the health agency. Of these, at least 10 are undergoing human trials right now. Experts believe that those that show the most potential as a successful vaccine are China's Sinovac and Cansino coronavirus vaccines, Oxford University's Adenovirus vaccine, Moderna's mRNA vaccine, and Novavax's coronavirus vaccine. Lancet, one of the world's most respected medical journals, recently published a study which concludes that China's COVID-19 vaccine trial, the first one to reach phase 1 clinical trial, has been found to be safe, well tolerated, and able to generate an immune response against SARS-CoV-2 in humans. In total, 5 vaccines developed by Chinese companies are being tested on humans, the most in any country. On 26th of May, Novavax announced it has started the phase 1 clinical trial and has enrolled the trial's first participants, with preliminary results slated for July. Moderna, a frontrunner candidate in the race for a vaccine, moved to human trials in a record-setting 63 days. In the last week of May, the US-based company announced it is now in its phase 2 of clinical trials. Chinese company Sinovac Biotech has claimed its inactivated vaccine, dubbed CoronaVac, has 99% efficacy. The company has already reached stage 2 of its vaccine trial with 1,000 volunteers and is in talks to hold stage 3 trials, the final part of the process in the UK. But despite the warp speed with which vaccines are being developed, experts warn that stringent safety testing needs to be conducted to rule out risks of enhanced diseases and side effects before the vaccine is rolled out for the public. Because benefit versus risk is the main game plan in vaccine development, and a vaccine's benefit must outweigh the risks.
Now, as the hunt for a coronavirus vaccine hots up, pharma companies across the world are trying to compress processes that normally take several years and compress them into just a few months. The global efforts for a vaccine are now reaching a stage of almost desperation. Several companies competing with each other in search of that magic shot. Let's take a look at where the world stands in the race for a vaccine.
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 Everyone wants it, but they realize it's easier said than done. There is a possibility that no safe vaccine is ever developed. HIV, for example, was first identified in 1983. A vaccine is still awaited nearly 4 decades later.
Vaccine or no vaccine, we're back. And we're starting the process.
This is by no means guaranteed. I'm going to hand over to Patrick and Chris in a minute because they know a huge amount about vaccines. I believe I'm right in saying that even after 18 years, we still don't have a vaccine for SARS.
This virus may become just another endemic virus in our communities, and this virus may never go away. I don't think anyone can predict when or if this disease will disappear.
Companies and research organizations world over are racing against time to come up with a magic shot. A vaccine that can develop immunity against the deadly virus. Of 124 recorded attempts to make a COVID shot, at least 10 are at the human trial stage. Of them, 5 are from China alone, the remainder from the US, the UK, and other European countries. Till date, China's Cansino adenovirus vaccine, Oxford University's adenovirus vaccine, Moderna's mRNA vaccine, and Novavax have emerged as the topmost promising vaccine candidates.
We don't know what's most important, and these different vaccines may target different parts of the immune response. We don't know which is most important, and since we don't know how long they will last, these responses, it makes it all a little tricky.
Experts say different vaccines may target different parts of immunoresponse, and as of now, no one knows which is going to be the more important one. And so, choosing the best one would not only be hard, but also time-consuming.
Now in India too, the efforts to develop a vaccine have slowly picked up pace. Now at least 30 Indian groups, individual startups supported both by the Government of India and also by the Department of Science and Technology are involved in different stages of vaccine development. But is anyone really any closer to finding a solution? Take a look at this report.
The global race for a coronavirus vaccine is heating up. And now, India has thrown its hat into the ring. The National Science Laboratories have rounded up 6 corona vaccines that they claim are making progress. Principal Scientific Advisor to Prime Minister Modi, K. Vijay Raghavan, recently declared that India is aiming to develop a COVID vaccine within a year.
अब हमारी कोशिश है कि जो 10 साल लगती है उसको 1 साल में करना चाहते हैं.
Experts say some preclinical vaccine studies in India could be completed by October this year.
फ्लू वैक्सीन के बैकबोन में कर रहे हैं, वो लगता है कि वो लेट प्री क्लिनिकल स्टेजेस में है अभी, लगता है कि अक्टूबर इस साल तक वो प्री क्लिनिकल स्टडीज हो जाएगी.
At least 30 Indian groups, individuals and startups are involved in different stages of vaccine development.
Our vaccine companies are not only into manufacturing, but they are also into vaccine development and R&D for vaccines. There are about a total of 30 groups in India, big industry to individual academics, who are trying to develop vaccines.
ICMR and Bharat Biotech International have been working on a COVID vaccine in India. The isolated virus strain has been characterized in a lab in Pune. India's Serum Institute, Indian Immunologicals and my lab are also said to be speeding up work on the production of a vaccine to match global efforts. In fact, Pune-based Serum Institute of India, which is one of the largest vaccine producers in the world, is now working with University of Oxford to find a safe and affordable COVID vaccine. While Oxford is conducting the clinical trials, SII is speeding up the production line.
I'm very confident that there will be a vaccine. We don't know how long it's going to take for a successful vaccine to prove efficacy, how many doses we need. You know, is it a one-shot, two-dose or two-dose vaccine? And we really don't know the long-term ability of these vaccines to protect us. Now, no one can answer that, and only time will tell where we end up. But I can certainly say that a few million doses will be available, at the end of this year if the Oxford trial succeeds.
But despite all of this, one thing is clear: if and when a vaccine is made, making it available to the global population will still be the biggest challenge.
Production on a very large scale takes a considerable amount of time. And so when we're looking at the vaccine being first available is not at the same time as when it's generally available. And when there are going to be limited supplies at the beginning of the availability of the vaccine, countries will have to make priorities to prioritize those who would benefit most from the vaccine.
So far, the WHO lists 8 frontrunners out of 115 potential COVID-19 vaccines. All of them in various stages of development in different countries across the globe.
So how should we look at this race for a vaccine and a search for a drug for COVID-19? I'm joined by a special guest. Dr. Shekhar Mande is Director General, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. Appreciate your joining us. Dr. Mande, the big question, of course, is across the world at the moment, 100 experimental COVID-19 vaccines in various stages of development, the race for a drug. What's your sense, particularly with the vaccine first? How soon do you go along with the conventional belief that it will take 12 to 18 months to come anywhere close, Dr. Mande, to a vaccine?
So what we have seen till now are the two frontrunners really. One is the Cansino biologics from China. They have announced their results, and the initial results seem very promising. There's the phase 1 results. They seem very promising. And similarly, Moderna has also published their phase 1 results.
Yes.
So Moderna is a US-based company, and their results also look promising. So we'll have to wait and see how the phase 2 actually comes out. The phase 2 is the real critical one, because phase 1 is actually tried on healthy volunteers, and phase 2 is actually tried on people who are affected. So this is a critical phase that we have entered now, and the results of this will really tell us what future we have and how soon we can achieve that.
The reason I'm asking you, Dr. Mande, because if you go back in the past, it's, vaccines have sometimes taken almost 2 decades and even longer, while in some instances Ebola was a little faster. Do you believe that scientific and biotechnology has reached the stage where it is possible now to hope that you can find a vaccine much faster than you could, let's say, 10, 20 years ago?
Yeah, indeed, the process has speeded up because of a lot of advances in making proteins quickly, in confirmation, assessing them on computers and so on and so forth. But in this case, also we have to remember SARS-CoV-2 is a cousin of SARS-CoV-1. And a lot of efforts which had gone on making vaccine of SARS-CoV-1, which are of course not successful, but nonetheless they actually help in reorienting ourselves in trying to generate a vaccine against CoV-2.
So in a sense, you're saying that there is some element of knowledge available which will be used perhaps in the months ahead. There's also talk, Dr. Mande, of the drug. Only today the government of India has approved Gilead Sciences when it comes to using remdesivir as emergency use for treating COVID-19 patients. Do you get a sense that perhaps in the next couple of months that is more likely, that you will have a drug or a combination of drugs that could be used not as a cure but possibly as a preventive?
So drugs always are used as a cure and vaccines are typically used as preventive. Although some of the drugs which are used in prophylaxis, they are used as preventive. Remdesivir is a good news because remdesivir is approved to be given for critically ill patients. But very soon, another week or 10 days, we hope to see approval for another drug, what is called as favipiravir. Russian FDA has given approval to it today. And we do hope that Indian DCGI also will look at it very critically. And hopefully that approval will also come very soon.
I'm told the CSIR is looking at that particularly closely, that drug particularly closely. Is that true? Give us a sense of what CSIR is doing at the moment.
That's right. So CSIR has about 10 drug candidates, all of which what we call as repurposing drugs. They're active on different diseases, but we are trying to see if they can be used against COVID-19. And favipiravir trials we have undertaken along with Cipla, and the trials are undergoing right now. But because Russian FDA has given an approval today, we do hope that Indian DCGI will take a note of that, and with limited safety trials in India, would also give approval for favipiravir.
And that, so you could have favipiravir available in the market within the next month on a bulk scale?
I think so. The Cipla has ramped up its capability of generating favipiravir, and it can generate enough dose to supply to the all world. So favipiravir production, what we gather from Cipla, will not be a problem.
So, you know, there is of course the question of HCQ. You have a very strong take, I'm told, on it. World Health Organization says don't use. ICMR says it could be a preventive measure for health workers if taken in multiple doses. What's your sense about this whole hydroxychloroquine controversy?
See, we have to go by scientific evidence on hydroxychloroquine, or rather on any other matter. So we take a very rational view. We look at the results of the clinical trials, and then we actually make a judgment based on that. The paper which appeared in the Lancet on HCQ was an observational study on about 96,000 people, and we believe the statistical analysis of the paper was not of the highest quality, and therefore we actually took a very strong view of the fact that the Lancet paper said that hydroxychloroquine is not very effective. Rather, actually it harms people more than its effectiveness, and that's actually we can taken an objection that because the statistical analysis is not very good, WHO shouldn't have taken that decision with a knee-jerk reaction. On the other hand, today we see that the Indian Journal of Medical Research has published a paper from ICMR in which hydroxychloroquine trials look promising. So I have to read that paper carefully before making the final judgment on whether hydroxychloroquine is really effective or not.
Just a final word, sir. Where does India stand in your view in this race? About 30 Indian companies, individuals are all looking at a possible vaccine, looking at drugs. Do you believe that we are, in a sense, in a position to compete with the rest of the world?
What we are very clear in our mind, irrespective of who actually gets there first, it is the Indian companies which will manufacture most of the vaccine candidates. The capability of Indian companies is phenomenal. And any vaccine that comes in the world is invariably almost certain that Indian companies will manufacture it for the world. So that actually we should be very proud of. Apart from that, the Indian R&D is also right now on par with the world. So hopefully any drug or any vaccine, we will be there at the top of that.
That's very reassuring to hear, Dr. Mande. We will of course have a more detailed conversation sometime in the days ahead, but you've given us lots of news today, including the possibility that favipiravir could be now used possibly as a drug in the days ahead. Thank you very much for joining me here on the... Welcome back to this in-depth special, the race for a vaccine, the search for a drug on COVID-19. Now, despite the World Health Organization's temporary pause on the use of hydroxychloroquine in solidarity trials and a Lancet study claiming the drug is unsafe, a new study by ICMR in India has proven just the opposite. The study has reaffirmed ICMR's previous stand. A sustained intake of the anti-malarial drug has shown positive results in reducing the risk of coronavirus in healthcare workers. I leave you today with this story from Milan Sharma, once again showing how the world is still in the race for a drug or a vaccine for coronavirus. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
In contrast to a recent World Health Organization decision to halt their HCQ trial, a new study by the Indian Council of Medical Research has found that a high dosage of hydroxychloroquine correlates with a lower COVID-19 infection rate in healthcare workers. The ICMR study indicates that simply initiating HCQ treatment among healthcare workers did not reduce the odds of getting infected by COVID-19. But with the intake of 4 or more maintenance doses of HCQ, the protective effect started emerging. A significant reduction of about 80% in the odds of COVID-19 infection in the healthcare workers was identified with the intake of 6 or more doses of HCQ.
With the data that ICMR has collected, they are confident that it will not pose any danger to these people who are recommended. As far as the HCQ being recommended on those who are COVID patients, those guidelines, the ICMR sources said they will review in future.
Despite the WHO stand on HCQ, experts in India have continued to support the ICMR version.
WHO, based on the Lancet report now, has temporarily suspended. They have not said that we are fully suspending. Temporarily suspended till they actually analyze the results of the hospital registry results. See, you have to remember hospital registry results and a proper clinical trial which is blinded and double-armed and all those things with respect to placebo and all are two completely different things. You know, it's not a proper clinical trial. Okay. It's only from the records of the hospital. It is observed that hydroxychloroquine administered to these patients has not helped.
A study on nearly 15,000 patients by premier medical journal The Lancet found that those being treated with HCQ and chloroquine are at a higher risk of death and irregular heartbeat. The study suggested that the use of HCQ didn't have any observable benefit. The researchers further claim that their large-scale analysis shows potential harm for hospitalized COVID-19 patients taking HCQ pills. Following this study, the World Health Organization temporarily halted the clinical trial of hydroxychloroquine, but it maintains that clinical trial data is still awaited and any final decisions will be taken only based on that.
Position based on the evidence is really there is no solid evidence one way or the other whether or not hydroxychloroquine is harmful or beneficial or not, and that's why it's important that we get clinical trial data.
The jury, it seems, is still out on the issue of HCQ's efficacy. Until a consensus is built, countries and administrations are taking their calls based on their assessments and their needs.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.